have to prove you're innocent. The only way we can do that is by going back.
I don't know who to trust.
Listen, I would never let anyone hurt you, Ahsoka. Never. But you need to come back and make your case to the Council.
No. I'm not going to take the fall for something I didn't do.
I am ordering you to put down your lightsaber and come with me. Now! Trust me.
Welcome to A Long Time Ago. My name's Martyn, and with me as always is my cousin Adam. How you doing, Adam?
I'm very good, thank you. And you?
Good, yeah, really good, thank you.
Good.
Today we're going to be continuing our top 11 Clone Wars episodes, and when I say our top 11, let's be honest, it's my top 11. Just wanted to bring up before we started that the 11 episodes that we're saying are my favorites aren't counting down from say 10 or 11 down to 1. It's in broadcast order, and there may be one or two that are quite obvious in other people's top 11, but this is just my personal opinion, and this is obviously the 11 that I like the most.
Most people would have a top 10, but Martyn, as previously stated, Martyn's not been able to pick a 10, so he's had to whittle it down to 11.
Yeah, well, without going into too much detail, it was a lot higher than 11, but I wasn't allowed to do that amount, so we got it down to 11 eventually. But without further ado and me rambling on too much, which will happen later on in the episode, we're going to be talking about season 5, episode 18, The Jedi Who Knew Too Much. And this is the second part of a 4-part arc. I'd love to be able to do full arcs as favorite episodes, but we simply just don't have time. So I've picked individual episodes from arcs or standalone episodes, and this is one of them. Before, as always, I go into an absolute tirade of comments and things that I loved about the episode. Let's go to you, Adam. You just literally watched the episode for the second time?
Second time, yeah. Although it took a little while. So it took until the point in the prison where Ahsoka is choking out Lotta Termond, I think her name was. It took until then before I actually realised that I'd had seen it before, because as we've probably mentioned before, I've seen most of the Clone Wars. There are still a few episodes that I haven't seen. Obviously, I would have seen this one because it's one of your favorites and you would have recommended it to me.
Yeah.
So, I have seen it, which, thought it was a good episode. Started off a little bit slow. And as you stated, it's the second part of a 4-part arc. So I don't really remember the events leading up to it too well, if at all. Actually, if I'm being honest, I don't really remember it at all.
Well, there's a lesson to anybody who's watching this and hasn't seen it before. Make sure you watch the first part first.
Yeah. So, a bit difficult, like I say, to remember what was going on.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think there are a lot of good moments in the episodes, some great moments in the episode before the prison break.
Yeah,
but it
was from the prison break point that the pace sort of really picked up, and it was actually quite an intense episode to watch.
Absolutely, and I think if anybody who's followed this series, and if they've watched the structure of how, well, I call it a structure. We try to do a structure, but the structure of these videos and podcasts is basically we talk about all the bullet point areas that I liked, and there's always one main part of the episode that I like, and they always tend to be things to do with Jedis or the Jedi, not necessarily clones, so or anything else to do with the Clone Wars. And again, I think this, without a spoiler ahead, is the same for me. I think the great part of this episode is to do with the Jedi-ness, if you like, of what's going on when Ahsoka's escaping the prison.
Yeah, well, it's that, and it's also quite sort of intriguing, isn't it? It leaves you wanting more at the end of it. That was what I got from it, because you don't know at the point who's helping Ahsoka escape the prison, just like we don't know who's choking out the prisoner before.
Yeah.
So, it's
let me stop you there.
Okay.
Do you remember who it was?
I
Don't
think
tell.
I do, but
Okay.
I'm not 100%. I think I do.
Okay.
I think that person actually makes an appearance in this episode. Is that right?
Yeah, possibly.
Quite
I'm,
possibly.
I'm sure anyone who watches this will probably have seen it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't want to just in case.
Without spoiling it, in
Yeah.
case this actually makes people want to go and watch it who haven't seen it before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, before we get to that awesome prison break, I'm going to run through a few things as always I do with these episodes. Things that I picked out that, and are the reasons I love this episode so much, and
Yeah.
it's made it into my top 11. So we'll start off with the opening. I thought it was a fantastic scene at the beginning, where you see all the Jedi attending the funeral of the other Jedi who died during the bombing.
Yeah.
And you kind of get the sense that this has become a regular occurrence for them since the war broke out. We haven't really seen a mass Jedi funeral or an official, I suppose you say, Jedi funeral in the temple. So that was kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
I thought some of Yoda's dialogue was absolutely great, you know, such as "No one lives forever" and "Live through us forever they will." I think this is obviously Yoda speaking the beliefs of the Jedi, which happens to be the complete antithesis of what Anakin thinks, and I thought that was quite a nice touch from the writers. You know, okay, this is what Anakin should have been like. He shouldn't have attachments. He shouldn't mourn the loss. Well, he should mourn the loss, but he shouldn't, you know, seek revenge or whatever when it comes to that sort of thing. So that's kind of why I like that scene. I thought the following scene where Ahsoka is showing some of the tendencies that Anakin has when she finds out the Republic military is taking over the investigation of the suspected bomber. You know, she has that tunnel vision that Anakin has when it comes to getting justice and finding out who the culprit is and making them pay. Something that, you know, you see with Anakin all the time through the Clone Wars, and it was quite, you know, she's obviously picked that up because he's her master, and you know, little moments like that, you know, as we've mentioned many times on this series, creates more depth to the characters of Anakin, Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, everybody really. It's quite amusing when you hear Anakin say revenge is not the Jedi way in that scene,
knowing how he is as a
exactly
Jedi.
You know, it's you can see Anakin I think throughout the Clone Wars is shown as someone who wants to be the best Jedi he can be, but he just can't get past the attachments side of things. And you know, as we see later on in this episode and further on in this arc, that's definitely something, you know, that's shown that he tends to struggle with. There was one thing in that Jedi Temple scene that you know, there was obviously all the regular Jedi Council members, you know, in the background of all these scenes, but I don't know if you noticed Terra Sanubi walking in the background around the Jedi Temple. Terra Sanubi being the guy who was in the Inquisitor's fortress, Fortress Inquisitorius, as I've struggled to call it on many occasions. In the Amber, the old looking Jedi with the walking stick.
God, no, I can't remember that one.
I think I've just found out what they're hiding down here. This place isn't a fortress. It's a tomb.
Despite
Really?
me only watching that a little while ago.
Wow. And we talked about it for quite a long time during the review episodes. But yeah, he was in the background of the episode. I'm sure if anybody.
I think now that, I think now that you say it, I think I did. Yeah, sorry, in the Amber. Yeah,
that's right.
In the Amber. Got you. Right. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, he was the first one that Obi-Wan saw when he went in there. Then sort of that kind of leads us to the scene where Ahsoka's been sort of summoned to the Republic military facility on Coruscant to talk to the witness, or the suspected bomber.
Yeah.
And there's this, and I always talk about panning shots in this series, but there's another fantastic panning shot where they're just panning around this Republic military base on Coruscant. And the animation, I mean, yeah, obviously it is animation, but it looks so real. It looks like something you'd see in one of the live action movies. And I just, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but the animation in this show is so good. And I just can't get enough of these wide angle panning shots of Coruscant in general, or space battles, or anything in this show. They do such a good job, and it makes you feel like you're in the prequels. I really, really enjoy that. Tarkin's interrogation of Ahsoka gives off big vibes of when he's interrogating or talking to Princess Leia in A New Hope. He's holding her by the chin as he's talking to her, and just like Leia sort of just pushes away from Tarkin, Ahsoka does the same. I thought that was a nice little Easter egg in there. But as with each episode, the reason I love this episode so much is basically the prison break part of the episode. And I know you've said,
well, I was going to say, like, it's not your average Star Wars prison break. There's like, it's more intense, if you like. I felt, I think you think about a Star Wars prison break for the most part. Obviously, it was different with the Andor prison break that we've seen recently, but in general, the Obi-Wan sort of, there's always they're crouching around the facility. It's very much more sort of stealth thing. In any case, when they're sort of working their way around any sort of Imperial premises, I know this isn't Imperial, but a lot of it, they do it so sort of stealthily. They're trying to avoid being seen, whereas this is very much like run and gun sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference is we're seeing a Jedi in their prime escaping clone troopers who only an hour or two, maybe a day before, were under their command, and they're under orders to take out Ahsoka, but at the same time, Anakin's there and he doesn't want his Padawan obviously to be
to stun, wasn't it?
Exactly. Well, initially they were shooting to kill. I will start with when she gets out of the facility, I think, and just as a little, well, it's not an Easter egg actually. I suppose the Bad Batch would be the Easter egg, but initially she gets out of the facility and she jumps up onto the clone statue. And the clone statues are next to the memorial wall that's created from stone taken with Geonosis during the first Battle of Geonosis, that has all of the memorials for the dead of the clone troopers on it.
We see that in Bad Batch.
You see that in the
Series
Solitary 2. Clone episode.
That's right,
it's quite prevalent in it, and it's they've obviously touched it up a bit in the Bad Batch because it looks really good. You can actually read the Arabish in it and everything, but it was kind of cool because for those who watch the Clone Wars, this was probably the first time I think we've seen that. And it leads up to what we're watching now, really, what we're seeing now. So, it's got to be over 10 years ago, that episode that we're watching today.
Right. Yeah.
So it's quite a while. So that was a nice little Easter egg.
Yeah.
But in reverse. I thought the atmosphere of the prison break, as soon as she gets outside, there's the thunderstorms and the lightning and the rain dripping, starting to drip on the lightsaber as she's running and trying to get away, and she's slipping all over the place. I thought, and the music, the sort of the operatic music while she's trying to escape from people that only the day before she was like in the trenches with, that she was commanding, if you like. The whole,
it hits the mood, doesn't it? It does. It sets the scene.
It's very tense. I don't think anyone would be under the illusion that she was going to get killed or anything, but even still, you didn't know where it was going to end, whether she was going to get captured or not. It was absolutely great. And there was some real brutal shots at her, I thought, where she was escaping, she's trying to run towards that ship to escape, and before Anakin gave the order to stun, they were trying to take her out with the big battery turrets, and blew up that ship right in front of her, and she took quite a wallop from the explosion of that, and that kind of, I think that was great to put at the beginning, because you thought to yourself, if you'd seen it the first time, I don't know, is she going to make it through this? They really are out to shoot to kill. I thought that was fantastic. As I mentioned, the music was great. Um, we're seeing.
And
We
then,
were, I don't know if obviously you remember because it's quite recent, but during Tales of the Jedi, we constantly saw Anakin training Ahsoka
yeah,
with the clones and
yeah,
how to, be able to go up against the clones and win or defend herself.
yeah.
Well,
Getting
again,
stunned on, occasion after occasion.
exactly, and
Yeah.
now again, I know we saw the fruits of that in the season or the near season finale of season 7 for the Clone Wars, but isn't it nice that this also corresponds to that
Yeah.
training?
Yeah.
Again, don't tell me for a second that they thought that through when they made this episode. There's absolutely no way, but isn't that a great insight and great memory from the makers of the show to
Mm.
think, well, actually, this won't be the first time that she's done this. She's escaped the clones before. So you could, in head canon, if not in real canon, say, well, this is a result of Anakin's training.
Yeah.
I love that. And I, more than anybody, love lightsaber fights in Star Wars. I absolutely love, and especially in the prequels and the Clone Wars, I absolutely love lightsaber fights.
Who doesn't?
Well, exactly. But there's one thing I love probably more than lightsaber fights when it comes to the Jedi. It's the acrobatics and the seeing things before they happen that the Jedi use the Force for. So, for example, there's a couple of examples this episode where Ahsoka is doing backflips through closing blast doors, and she just makes it through doing sort of a flip through it just as it closes. There's her walking or running, sorry, along the gangways as the clone gunships are trying to shoot her with stun blast, and she's doing I don't know, cartwheels and flips and jumps, and she's managing not only to deflect them with the lightsaber, but managing to sort of, as her leg goes over, one goes between her legs, just to avoid it. And I think I love that more than anything about the idea of the Force and the way the Jedi use it, and the fact that they can deflect blaster bolts, or in this case stun bolts, because they can see things before they happen, and they can see it happening, so they can deflect this stuff so quickly. And even in live action as well as animation, it comes across so cool on screen. I absolutely love it. And there's one little scene, and this isn't the first time it's happened in Star Wars, but whenever a Jedi loses their lightsaber and they call it back with the Force, and as soon as they grab it in their hand, like she does in this episode, it instantly ignites.
Yeah.
And there's lots of things in Star Wars that people say, oh, that's very Star Wars, and we've talked about them before. There's losing a limb, there's binary sunsets, there's space battles, there's lightsaber fights, but this for me is also one of those Star Wars moments or tropes or whatever you want to call it, where someone calls a lightsaber, they instantly grab it, and as it reaches their hand, it's ignited straight away.
Yeah.
And a couple more things. Obviously, when Ahsoka sees Anakin at the end of the tunnel before she jumps down into the catacombs of Coruscant, there's that whole, I don't know if you've seen The Fugitive with Harrison Ford.
This is my notes.
Okay.
This is in my notes. It's very The Fugitive.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it reminded me of straight away, and I was wondering if there was a reason behind that.
I think everybody thought that when it first came out, and I still think that now. And I actually, before we came on, I looked at the episode notes that they have on the StarWars.com, and actually, I think the makers intentionally did that because it's actually in the notes that they did that. So that was a cool moment.
Yeah.
But
is there any relevance? Who did somebody work on The Fugitive who worked on this, or?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I mean, something that they liked and they wanted to put in.
No, I mean, there's with the Clone Wars, George wanted them to do a lot of homages to other films. I mean, there was the Zillow Beast episodes in the first season, sorry, and they were kind of Godzilla type episodes. I don't know if you've seen those ones.
No,
obviously, each of these 4 episodes in this arc are named after Alfred Hitchcock movies. Obviously, this one being The Jedi Who Knew Too Much. So obviously, you know, that's named after a Hitchcock movie, minus the Jedi. So basically, George was always doing homages to other, you know, big filmmakers. So I don't think it really had anything Harrison Fordy involved,
No, right.
but it definitely, you know, he wanted to get
I did think maybe it's just the Harrison Ford is the only link there, but
possibly. But I think
completely
it's
irrelevant to the episode.
Yeah, I think it's irrelevant. I think it's more. It's just the shot itself. You know, it's a famous shot in a movie that everybody loves. And obviously during that scene, you know, it's interesting that both Anakin and Ahsoka obviously don't have any faith in the Jedi Council anymore to, you know, believe her that she's innocent of the crime of killing the prisoner. So you know, I think there's the inklings there of, you know, what's to come, and I won't spoil that.
Fall apart a little bit.
Yeah, I think there's, you know, that's a nice little sort of, you know, thing that we're going to see in future episodes, which I won't spoil. Now that's all the notes I have for this episode. Obviously I'm going to spoil our next episode because I think I have to. I'm going to be choosing episode 20 as our next episode that we'll be talking about. Okay. So anybody
we're
skipping over 19, which is a great episode, don't get me wrong, and I'm sure by the end of this list there'll be people complaining that why didn't you have this on your list, why didn't you have this on this, but you know, 19 is a great episode. There's so many great episodes, but 19
let's watch 19 before we get into 20 then. I'm going to watch 19.
Yeah, I think you should
keep on top of it.
Yeah, because there is quite a bit of a linkage there, but because of time, we're just going to be talking about episode 20. So anybody who's watching this, just pop on 19 before you watch our podcast about
just
20.
For the sake of it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Is that it? Is that everything?
I think that's it for this episode. Yeah.
Well,
that could go on forever, as you know.
Yeah. As you know. Yeah. Well, that is good because I was going to say, you know, I'm after watching that, I'm kind of hoping that the next one leads on nicely to this one, and we get to find out what happens at the end of the arc and everything. So
the plot thickens.
Yeah. Luckily, we do. So good stuff. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends. That would be grand. Otherwise, we'll catch you in the next one. We'll see you later.
And Ahsoka on the Run is an awesome sequence. I don't know that our show has ever felt more like Star Wars than when all the clones are chasing Ahsoka Tano. It just looks like Star Wars. Instead of Jedi slicing up battle droids, finally you have what look like stormtroopers chasing down a Jedi. And that's something that I think I always pictured the Clone Wars really to be about. Really, when you look at it in a lot of ways with Anakin leading it, it's Darth Vader hunting down a Jedi Knight.
Ahsoka, what are you doing?
You didn't even try to come and help me.
They wouldn't let me in to talk to you.
You could have if you tried.
The moment between Anakin and Ahsoka at the end of the pipe is one of my favorites. I mean, it's obviously a nod to The Fugitive. If you've seen the movie The Fugitive, there's something about that moment of this concept of a leap of faith where Ahsoka, you know, believes in herself and her abilities to overcome this dilemma and asks of Anakin, you have to trust me now. It's such a pivotal moment for her character before she leaps into the beyond. It's really one of my favorite moments. It's something that I drew in the very first story meeting we had about this with George. I drew a scene of Ahsoka just leaping off as the camera looks up at her, and I wanted that shot in the episode, and it was really well done. I think that Ashley's acting and Matt Lanter's acting in that scene is some of the best that the two of them have ever done, and it just escalates from here into the final episode, so it's going to be exciting when you see that one.